Left, Benson Oching is an environmental lawyer, and we also have Samuel Matonda from the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming in. I'll start with you, Benson. 5 days to go. Do you think Kenya is ready for this?
This is an idea whose time has come. I think we should have been ready a long time ago. It's always good to start somewhere, so I think it's a good step forward.
Samuel, manufacturers have had issues with this particular ban since it was gazetted in February. What really are the sentiments from your end?
Okay, so what I could say is that what the manufacturing sector has been talking about is we are glad that the PS has come out and said there are exemptions which he has made. We have been in discussion with them after the ban, and we gave a list of exemptions that we requested, which were supposed to be gazetted. And that was some time back. It's good that there is some progress, and that justifies what we've been talking about, that this ban was not really well thought out. And though it had a good intention, there are many products that cannot be packaged by other alternative packaging except the plastics. And that's what we've been talking about. Yes.
What are some of the things that you asked would be exempted from this particular ban?
One that came out and that was exempted within the week is actually the garbage bins liners. We've been talking about the pharmaceutical packaging. We've been talking about food packaging, whereby most of the packaging for food materials is using the plastics packaging because of hygiene reasons. And we just mentioned but a few. And the list was actually exhaustive, but touching all the sectors, because at least each manufacturing sector out of the 14 sectors I represent have one or two products that cannot use alternative packaging other than the plastics. And we expected that the ministry could come out and gazette those exemptions, because what we're having now is what is in the frequently asked questions on their website, which has been changing. It's very dynamic, it's very fluid, it's not something that's predictable. And I think what we thought was that. And then in addition to that, this brings in the question of that elaborate and comprehensive public participation in this, because if this was done earlier, then these exemptions, whatever that is happening now, could have even been agreed upon earlier, and then when the ban or whichever regulation was put in place, this could have been without any ambiguity at all, as it is now.
So the manufacturers don't feel like they were extensively consulted on this?
On this particular issue, no. On the ban.
Your thoughts, Benson?
Well, it's usually a very controversial matter, Kisa, when you enter the domain of public participation. Of course, we're just coming from issues of tendering and public participation. And I think there are a lot of gray areas when you get there. My perspective is that this is an idea whose time has come. Remember that it didn't just come from the blue. This is the second or third time that we are coming into this issue. We've had at least 2 false starts before, one dating back to as far back as 10 years ago. And of course, no one disputes the fact that plastic bags are a menace to this country for various reasons, which have been highlighted in the clips that you just showed. And at least we have to draw a line somewhere, despite all the hues and cries. Of course, no one would want to dismiss some of the legitimate concerns that have been raised. There is always the issue of what degree of participation is sufficient participation. And in this matter, if you talk of public participation, do you take a vote? Because there is really a clear chance that the majority of Kenyans in this country feel that something ought to be done. It is an eyesore, it is a menace for various reasons, health reasons, environmental reasons. But remember also that as a people in this country, we have committed to do some of these things in no less a document than the Constitution. Our Constitution, in its opening paragraphs, is very clear that we are respectful of the environment as our heritage, and we are determined to sustain it for future generations. In Article 10 of the Constitution, we clearly say that as a country, we subscribe to the principles of sustainable development as a fundamental concept in management of public affairs. In Article 69, the government is obligated that the state shall take all measures necessary to ensure that it eliminates activities and processes that endanger the environment. Definitely plastic bags, processing, use, importation, and any other activities related to them are inimical to the environment. They are a danger to the environment. And so if we subscribe to that fact, then really we needed to draw a line, and we have to start somewhere. We are definitely going to have some teething problems, questions of fairness, issues of loss of jobs, economic questions related to the kinds that my friend and Kenya Association of Manufacturers have raised. But definitely we have to start somewhere, and this is where the exemptions that he's talking about come in. Definitely, as the permanent principal secretary did indicate, the government is showing a great degree of goodwill that we are not just interested in doing a blanket ban. We are willing to listen and to take certain measures for various reasons, socio-economic in nature. But definitely we have to draw a line, and I think it's a good start because those exemptions are also very massive, so much so that you might ask, are we going to achieve it once we start giving all these kind of exemptions?
That was definitely my next question to Samuel, that you've asked for a list of things that, or bags that should be exempted from this particular ban. Wouldn't this make implementation hard?
Let me go back to the ban itself.
Yes.
Actually, the ban, the way it is banning all the plastic carrier bags and flat bags. That is a Gazette notice, and that is what is in the Gazette notice. Whatever that is in the FAQs, the frequently asked questions in their website, and whatever exemptions the principal secretary has just talked about in a press conference earlier today, is that that is in the frequently asked questions, that is like a response to what they have realized that the ban may not work because of its ambiguity and because of broadness. And then that is why they have come up and said, yes, let's exempt some of the products. What I'm saying is that it is indeed necessary for even the exemptions to be gazetted in the first place, for it to really be as binding as the legal notice is. Two, we have, it's going to be very difficult for the enforceability of this ban, because take an example of you have a product that, because one of the requirements that has not been mentioned is that the manufacturers are supposed to declare their stocks, and then they do a take-back scheme and an EPR scheme. That's an extended producer responsibility. But then this was posted on their website within this week. And the form, the clearance form, was actually uploaded, was it yesterday? Yes, yesterday. So these are new developments which could have even come 6 months ago, so that we start utilizing the same. So there is going to be a big queue even if manufacturers wanted to go and seek clearance, because of the timing of the clearance forms being made available and the information and instructions being made available. Okay. So it's not going to be easy to enforce this law, because even if you talked of the recyclable materials and the oxo-biodegradables, if they are going to be registered, because they have not been registered already as alternatives. When you look at the physical appearance of these alternative materials, they are just the same as the usual plastic materials that we are using here. But how are we going to differentiate that so that when you have a branded bag of the normal plastic materials and maybe the biodegradable ones, if it has been approved for manufacturing, how will you differentiate? So those are some of the teething issues which will come out very clearly even as the implementation of the same happens.
So you think implementation is going to be a tad bit difficult this time round?
At all order.
5 days to go. The government, Benson, has said that it will not extend that deadline. According to the law, what do we expect to see after 28th?
I would agree with that position, because usually the best way to undermine legislation is usually to start cutting back or clawing back on its effectiveness or implementation. And I think it is good that we have drawn a line. We have a date when it starts. It is good that we proceed as it is. We can address some of the teething problems as we go along. Definitely, Kenya Association of Manufacturers, represented by some here, are raising very legitimate concerns, but these are about the process. Of course, they say that procedure is the handmaiden of substance, but at the end of the day, there is a substantial issue at stake here. We have seen the menace that the plastic bags are causing, and we've drawn a certain line. We can talk of the processes through which we need to go so that we sanitize the entire scheme of the ban on plastic bags. Remember also that if you read the Gazette notice, it is clear that we are talking of carrier bags and we are talking of flat bags. So there is clearly a distinction somewhere that ought to be made, and that is a good starting point. We are also now talking about certain exemptions, among which are the fact that we are not talking of industrial packaging material that are approved according to certain standards. So those ones continue in place. Remember also that there are many categories of plastics, including plastic bottles. We are yet to go there, but we have started from the basic. The ISO problem that we see on a day-to-day basis, the light bags that are blown away by wind and are carried by almost every other person every other day. So I think legitimate concerns are being raised, but I think it is good that we don't start clawing back on what we have stated as the position moving forward.
Someone looks like he wants to react to that.
Thank you. What we are talking about flat bags. We are talking about carrier bags. Then these flat bags, the way it is just as ambiguous as it is. We are talking about industrial packaging. We are not talking about primary packaging. Those definitions have not been given anywhere for a layman to understand what this is. Had it been that clear that flat bags are exempt, which flat bags are these? We use flat bags to package flowers for export. We use flat bags to package our textiles, clothing for export. We use flat bags in the manufacture of, in the packaging of pharmaceutical products. We use flat bags in the packaging of food items. So when you talk of flat bags, every plastic bag, when it comes from the factory, is flat. Then when you put your product inside, it takes the shape of the product. So essentially what it talks about, that's why I'm saying that it is actually broad, and it is talking about banning of all plastic packaging materials. That's one. Two, when you talk about, we've been raising this issue that some of these discussions could have been done earlier, so that this is very clear. The implementation of this ban is not, well, yes, just rightly say that we may not discuss that because that is the duty of government. Then why have these exemptions come 5 days before the ban, if there is no good reason for that?
All right. Yes. I would want you to hold on to that thought. We are definitely getting back to that conversation. The questions that he is raising about the gazettement of those that have been exempted, as well as let's take a look at just how many jobs will be lost and what are some of the alternatives that Kenyans should explore after 28th. So let's take a short break here on Kivumbi 2017. We'll be back with more on the second hour of the afternoon session. Don't go too far.